I was unemployed, tens of thousands of dollars in debt, no university degree, wasting 60 hours per week playing video games to escape reality, and most importantly, I just felt stuck. This is the story of how I taught myself how to code and landed a job in 6 weeks. I'm going to explain to you exactly what I learned, how I landed a job without a degree at just 19 years old, and how I ended up at Google after just 3 months. Now, this was only possible because I avoided the 3 major mistakes that almost everyone makes that slows their progress to become a software engineer. So I'll get into that a bit later in the video, but for now, let's just get straight into it. So the reality is not a lot of people know how to code efficiently. Everyone on YouTube is saying something different, and everyone just feels stuck. Now, I can tell you one thing, and this is guaranteed. If you go into coding with no particular roadmap, then you're never going to land a job. You're just going to be going around in circles. So the first thing that I did to actually land a job in 6 weeks was pick one field of software. And the field of software that I chose was front-end development. And there's a few reasons for this. Number one, because it's super easy to learn. There's like 14-year-olds learning it. Number two, you don't need a degree, because for me personally, I didn't want to waste 4 years at university, especially because I already did it for a few years and I wasn't learning anything, and I was just wasting tens of thousands of dollars. So I wanted to get a job as soon as possible. And number three, the quality of life of front-end developers is absolutely insane, because you work from home. I had friends that were front-end developers. They're working in their pajamas from their bed. So I knew it was something that I wanted to get into. Now, the secret that actually let me learn to code so quickly, and I found this by pure chance, it was from this structure that I'm about to go through. So first of all, with learning any new technology when it comes to coding, you want to learn the crash course. So basically what we call this in programming is we call it T-shaped development. So we want to learn the crash course. We want to learn a bit about everything. And then what we do, once we learn a bit about everything, that's when we jump into 3 guided projects. And during these projects, you're going to be following a tutorial, and they're going to be showing you exactly what you need to do in order to build a beautiful application. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. The first tutorial you do after the crash course, you're not going to be understanding shit.
Dude, I don't get it. I don't get it either.
This is completely normal. This is okay, but you want to continue. After the first tutorial, you want to do the second tutorial. You're going to be starting to get the hang of things right now.
Wait a minute. That's it.
And then by the time you get up to the 3rd tutorial where you're coding along with the instructor, you're actually going to be understanding everything. Everything from the crash course is going to be coming together. Everything from the previous 2 projects are going to be coming together, and you're actually going to be working ahead of the instructor. And what I recommend to everyone is when you're following along with projects, when you're following along with tutorials, you don't actually copy it one-to-one. You change a few things. You change the colors, you change the layout, you change the words. And this is how I was able to learn so freaking quick. Now, what I did afterwards, and this was to avoid tutorial hell, and basically what that is when you're going in loops just following tutorials and you're not really understanding anything anymore. Now it's time to build an individual project. So this is when you struggle the most, but you actually learn the most as well. So in programming, you really don't learn if you're not struggling, and this is why not a lot of people can do it. Not a lot of people have the mental strength to actually push forward through that suffering, and this is one of the reasons why I was able to learn to code so quickly, because I knew in my head, all right, look, this sucks right now, but I'm learning so quickly. The neurons in my brain are shaping different roadmaps. It's learning so much right now. And something that will motivate you to keep going is when you make one mistake in coding, you'll never make the same mistake again. You'll learn, and then when you make a new mistake, it's actually even easier to solve that, because once you know how to solve a problem, you just use the same framework to solve every other problem. So it actually gets easier over time. Now, for front-end development, it's actually super easy to get a job. You only need to know 3 technologies. The 3 core foundations are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And there's a bunch of other small technologies after that, but these are the core. If you know these, you can easily land a job. And the beautiful thing about these skills is they actually build on top of each other. So at the start, you'll learn HTML. Your website's going to look like ass, but that's okay, because when you learn CSS, now when it comes to the individual project, when you're actually learning, you're able to style your project that you build in HTML. And then when you learn JavaScript, this is when you can actually add some cool things to your website. So I'm talking authentication, payment integration, some nice animations. So now you're probably wondering, all right, which project did I build? And I think if you follow these projects that I built, honestly, you will learn really quickly. The first one I built was an e-commerce project. If you build an e-commerce website, it can just be like an Amazon clone if you suck at designing. And if you're just starting out, you probably do suck. So cloning websites, I found, is probably the best way to learn, because you don't need to worry about any design. You just copy what's already there online. So you'll start off with an e-com website. You'll do the logging in. You'll do the registering. If you don't know how to do it after building 3 projects, that's fine. You can also look online. You can do a tutorial and then go on your own and build another e-com website. The second project I built, and this one was so much fun to me because I'm into fitness. The second one I built was a BMI calculator. So basically what I did was I got your age, I got your weight, and I got your height, and basically I also got your goals. So basically I asked users if they want to lose weight or if they want to actually gain muscle. And based on that, I told them how many calories they should be eating and how long it will take them to achieve their goal. And I actually sent this to all my friends and they're all thanking me for creating this. But what they don't know is I already got this concept online from someone else. Because when I built it, there was actually no free tool to find out how many calories. There was only algorithms online, but you had to like do that shit yourself. So I basically made a software for all my friends to use to calculate it automatically. And the final project I built was a Tic Tac Toe project. Now in the programming community, this is basically a meme, like every beginner builds a Tic Tac Toe project. But for me personally, I found that building this project actually helped me learn so much about JavaScript because my JavaScript was ass. So basically all it was is one person versus a robot, and there was 3 levels of difficulty. There was an easy mode, there was a medium mode, and there was an extreme difficulty mode where it was literally impossible.
Inconceivable.
I coded the bot to beat every single person that versed in tic-tac-toe, or at least draw. So I actually managed to do this in 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks, honestly, I was pretty good. So now it was time for me to apply to jobs. So it took me around 6 weeks to get up to this point where I was decent at coding. Like I was actually surprised how fast I was learning to code, because all my other friends that were at university, like they were trash after a few years. And after 6 weeks, I was already better than them. So I had this massive ego at this point. I'm like, look, if a company hires me, I'm going to be learning so quickly. I can provide so much value to this company. So let's see what happens when I start applying. So I started applying. Now, before Warren Buffett became a billionaire investor, there was one mentor that he wanted to learn from over everyone else. And this guy's name was Benjamin Graham. He was called the father of value investing. So basically he published this insane book and Warren Buffett ended up reading it. And he's like, all right, I want this guy to be my mentor. So what did Warren Buffett do? Well, we now know he's actually like the richest man in the world if you count all his donations. So he's very smart. So what he said to Graham was, look, I will work for you and you don't have to pay me anything. I'm going to work for you for free.
I said I'd go to work for him for nothing.
Now, what do you think Graham said back to him? And I'm going to tell you what he said back to him, if you haven't heard this story yet, is going to shock you. Graham looked back at Warren Buffett and he started laughing in his face. What he said was, that is overpriced. Now, why am I telling you this? Understanding the concept behind working for free and why Warren Buffett was overpriced is actually going to help you get into tech. And if you don't understand this concept, then you just don't understand how business works and you're never going to land a job. Basically, what Graham was thinking was, all right, if I bring Warren Buffett on board, even though he's working for free, the amount of time that it will take either me or my senior staff to train him is actually worth more than the value that Warren Buffett will provide for free. So the business is actually not gaining anything. It's actually losing money if Warren Buffett joins. And this is exactly how the software industry works for hiring interns. And not a lot of people know about this. Basically, if you want to land an internship, the company is going to be losing money on you. So you want to provide as much value as you can to try to make the company not lose as much money and ideally actually make money off you. So as soon as I heard about this, my goal was to provide as much value to a company as possible. What I did was apply to 200 companies offering to work for free. Now at this point, again, I've been coding for 6 weeks. I know enough to be valuable. But what happened? When I applied to 200 companies, guess how many people got back to me? Absolutely zero.
Survey said.
And honestly, at this point, I was feeling pretty down because I thought I just wasted 6 weeks of my life. But what did I do? I took a step back and I realized, all right, I'm doing something clearly wrong if no company wants to hire me for free. So what I realized was my perceived value wasn't as high as the value that I thought I was. So I went back and I realized I need a portfolio. So all these projects I had, I wasn't even showing them. I wasn't even showing them what I was capable of. So I went back, I got my tic-tac-toe project, I got my e-commerce website, I put it all into one beautiful portfolio that I just copied from YouTube. And then in my cover letter, not only did I say I'll work for free, I also showed them some of my work. And now I started getting responses. And there was this one company that came back to me that said, David, your work looks great. I would love to have you on my team. And how much was this company paying me? $2 an hour. Now at this time, I also got another offer from a bank, which is like a really big bank in Australia. So having that on my resume was going to be huge, but they actually wanted me to work as a quality assurance engineer instead of a front-end engineer. And basically what QA is, it's like the most boring part of tech. You're just like testing bugs all day. It's not an inventive skill. And because for me, I have a very big business brain, I want to learn a skill that if I have an idea, I can build something with it. And for front-end development, it's the only field of tech that if you have an idea, you can actually build it for other people to use. You can't do that if you're just testing bugs. So even though the bank was so prestigious, I actually took the offer from the smaller company paying $2 an hour just so I can learn so much about front-end development. Now, even though I technically got a job, I was still broke as hell. But the good news was that I was learning so quickly. So at home, when I was learning to code, I was only putting in 1 to 4 hours per day. But when I was working at the job, I was forced to code for 8 hours per day. Not only that, I also had a mentor sitting right next to me that I'll also ask questions. So 1 hour working was actually equal to like 4 hours working. So each day I was getting the equivalent of everyone else's 1 week of studying. So basically I was learning very quick, and my value as an engineer after just 2 weeks of working there shot straight up. Now what's funny was when I was working, I knew my value at this time was a lot more than $2 an hour. And honestly at the start, it probably was like negative $20 an hour. But right now my value was so high, I was going to apply for another job. So I went back on job sites. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make some money coding. Let's go. Let's start applying. And I was actually applying while working for the other guy. And my boss is literally just walking down the aisle while I'm applying to other jobs. I thought that was pretty hilarious. So one day as I was coding, I was making $2 an hour. And by the way, the train ride to get there actually probably costed more than that. And I realized I got a take-home assessment for a junior company that wanted me to work for them. And they advertised $60,000 to $80,000 per year.
God, we are so rich.
Now the funny thing is, in this job ad, it actually required 2 years of experience. And I'm not sure if you know how these job sites work, but basically if a company writes that they want 2 years of experience, if you actually apply and you say you have less than 2 years of experience, the company will not even get your resume. So for me, when I saw that, I knew that, and I put 2 years of experience, and I actually aced the technical take-home interview. So it was to create a login page. I went on Google, I looked for the best login page that I can find. I ended up finding a YouTube tutorial. I copied the code over, changed it a bit, made it look nice, cleaned up the code. I sent it to them, and they were so impressed that they actually offered me the job. Now this company actually worked for Google. So basically when I jumped straight into the code, I was working on a website for Google, which was absolutely huge. The senior engineer at this company was an absolute freaking genius. So I was learning even 10 times more what I was learning at the other company. So every single week I was getting better and better. Now technically I wasn't working for Google, but I worked for a company that worked for Google, and I was only making $60K per year. Even though I was 19 years old, I knew I could make more money. So what I did was in my free time, I learned data structures and algorithms, and I ended up landing a 6-figure job at Canva at 20 years old. Now even though everyone's goal is to work for Google, it's actually not as good as it sounds. It's actually better if you're younger to work at a startup company. You learn so much more. You can actually make more money. So at Canva, I was making $160K per year because the stock price just kept going up because it was a high growth company. And I knew people at Canva that joined years earlier and their shares were worth up to $10 million. So basically these people were making a couple $1,000,000 per year just because they joined at the right time. Now this was a few years ago, and I did end up quitting my job because in my opinion, if you're young, you shouldn't be wasting it doing low risk activities. Instead, you should be taking the highest risk you can. So I created a few tech startup companies, and my risk actually paid off, and I became a tech millionaire at 22 years old. Now I'm going to be honest with you, if you're going to try to learn to code in 6 weeks, you're probably going to fail, and that's just because you probably won't have the focus needed to learn to code for 6 weeks straight. So to avoid giving up, what I did was I created a video of the only 8 hacks that you need to give you unlimited focus while you're learning how to code. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in there.